There's a story from the Sefer Agadah, the book of legends, that in the days of Noah's Ark, as Noah was busy ushering aboard all the animals 2 by 2, falsehood tried to sneak aboard the ark. Noah stopped falsehood from entering because he said it needed a partner. He was only letting them on 2 at a time. So falsehood went to seek its pair. It wasn't a great match for beauty, and it was completely incompatible with truth. But then it stumbled upon wickedness. As falsehood asked wickedness to join him, wickedness asked, "What will you give me in return to be your partner?" Falsehood answered, "I will give you anything I get from lying." And thus falsehood survived the flood. And to this day, whenever a lie is told, wickedness grows. Tonight, on this holiest of days, we attempt to distance ourselves from falsehood and all that comes out of those lies. Tonight, we go on a quest for truth. Because in order to truly ask forgiveness of others, we first have to confront ourselves. We have to confront ourselves with the hard realities that we have done wrong. In order to improve our behaviors for this next year, we have to internalize the truth of our shortcomings. In essence, we wrestle with truth, recognizing that there are some truths that come from outside of us, that are bigger than any one of us, which bind us together in our understandings of who we can become. These great truths of human interaction, of scientific understanding, of language and communication, they make society possible. These truths allow us to build on top of the shoulders of those who have come before us. At the same time, though, there are also truths that come from within us. The truths of our experiences and our interpretations. Sometimes what I know should be in my heart is not the way of the world. And so these truths from within, they shape our perception of the world around us and the way that the world should be. On this day of Yom Kippur, we wrestle with both of these forms of truth, the truth from outside and the truth from within. And we look for sources of where we can find truth. Especially now, in this year, this age of post-truth, of truthiness and outright non-truths, our time of reflection and growth to reacquire truth, to avoid adding to the wickedness of falsehood is more important than ever. Nowadays, falsehood stands erect and truth lies prostrate on the ground. Actually, that was not my words for today. Those were the words from our book of wisdom called the Zohar, the 13th century mystical book of Kabbalistic teachings. And I don't believe they were even describing an election year. So as much as those words sound like they are fit for our world today, if you feel that truth is in short supply these days, that it's hard to trust any of the information around us, at least you can take solace in knowing that this problem is not new. Our people have dealt with this before. But it's a problem that we have to deal with. We're here to figure out that path where the truth inside and the truth outside align, making the world seem whole. Because if one or the other is out of alignment, then everything is a bit off, and we lose our grounding, our center. we have to do the work to realign those truths, either by adjusting the truth outside, adjusting the truth within, or maybe a little bit of both. We must wrestle to find the intersection of where these truths can push us to grow, to find deeper understanding, and to really play a role in healing our world. So I want to start by exploring this truth that's outside of us, this truth that's bigger than any of us. It's a truth that was really focused on and written about in a recent book published just this month called Morality, written by Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks, the longtime former Chief Orthodox Rabbi of the United Kingdom. He focused on how truth is a cornerstone of a functioning society. He says a world of truth is a world of trust, and vice versa. Because in it, there's something larger than individuals seeking their own interest. Where there is honesty, truth, and truthfulness, there tends to be law, order, and prosperity. Because a respect for truth is essential for the ability to have authority in our lives, to have collaborative endeavors and human graciousness. But to access this truth that comes from beyond us, it requires of us humility. I have to be able to recognize that certain facts are true, even though they may challenge my convictions. I have to acknowledge that there is something larger than me. He describes that in our world today, we cannot allow our inner sense of what I want the world to be to overwhelm our conception of what the world should be. And this quest for truth, a shared truth that is bigger than any one of us, this is part of the founding of the country that we live in here in America, a country that we love. Because in this country, we declared that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. And as an example of how our truths can shift over time, we've expanded that original declaration in our hearts to include the truth that all people are created equal, regardless of race, gender, religious belief, country of origin. This is a collectively changed truth that we've achieved, at least in theory. But what happens to us as a society if that truth no longer stands self-evidently? What happens to us if only some of us see this equality as a truth? Rabbi Sacks describes a world like this. He says that where truth dies, there dies trust. And today, one of the biggest challenges to creating that trust in one another in our society is our willingness to put our inside truths over those that come from the outside. We allow ourselves into the echo chambers of information. As Rabbi Sacks says, the resultant filtering out of opposing views leads to a mistrust and a deepening lack of understanding of those whose opinions are not like ours. Differences become divides. We begin to inhabit disconnected islands of the like-minded. Disconnected islands of the like-minded. That doesn't sound like a society. But that's what we're experiencing all over. The divisiveness, the polarization, the extreme positions that are popping up everywhere, not rooted in truth, but rather in opinion, in desire, in individualism. It's interesting because Rabbi Sacks notes that even one of the biggest thought leaders in the realm of atheism, Friedrich Nietzsche, acknowledged that the core sense of faith and religion is sometimes essential to the idea of truth. Because when we lose religion, he says we would lose morality and with it a concern for truth. And with the loss of a concern for truth, not even science would hold strong. Nietzsche said nothing is needed more than truth. He said, we godless anti-metaphysicians still take our fire too from the flame lit by a faith that is thousands of years old. That faith which was also the faith of Plato, that God is the truth, that truth is divine. Here we have one of the architects of not believing in God saying that it is belief in God and faith and religion where we can find those truths that are bigger than ourselves. As Jews, we find this shared moral code that grounds us, that helps us to overcome the whims of the day in our Torah. Starting with one of the top 10 commandments, the commandment opposing idolatry. Now, idolatry is more than just praying to many gods or praying to idols, to statues. Our tradition's description of idolatry is ascribing as a source of absolute truth anything which is not God. When we put the pursuit of money, the pursuit of power, the pursuit of fame, the pursuit of political positions above anything else, our tradition says this is a form of worship. And in doing so, we can justify anything. We can make anything true in our hearts. Then our external sources of truth, those truths that are supposed to be bigger than any of us, they can become fully subjective. And we can delude ourselves into believing falsehoods. In our tradition, it's been study of Torah. Even those stories that we may know to be historically inaccurate. These stories that ground us with moral truths that are here to prevent us from losing ourselves. And our collective embrace of these truths have become the basis of society. Though when we stretch and bend or especially break these truths, when we find ways to deceive ourselves as to how we might be able to find other truthinesses, that's when wickedness emerges, when we lose trust in one another, in our society, even trust in ourselves. And so to this day, study of Torah that is out of curiosity, out of questioning and wrestling, is a great way to maintain our access to truth, to moral grounding that helps us stay whole when it feels like society has gone off the deep end. And it's this kind of study of Torah, this wrestling, that helps us to wrestle with the information that floods us every day, helping us to make sure that we don't take things at surface level, but we always delve beneath. And so our truths that are beyond us, they impact our relationships in our society. Yet at the same time, that's not the only truth that exists, because we each have truths in our hearts, brought to us by our experiences. You and I can experience the same moment, and we can take totally different truths from that time. The truth out there does not have to invalidate the truths we find in our hearts. In fact, they instead can work together. But far too often, we allow our inner truths, our internal interpretations, to block out access to anything that might come from outside of our hearts. In doing so, we block our abilities to grow, to notice, to even transcend our shortcomings, to connect with others. We're never pushed if we only live in the truth in our hearts. And so how do we use this internal truth? Well, Sometimes that inner truth can be an access point signaling that there's some greater truth out there that we may need to not only find, but maybe even create for our world. A great example of this can be found in learning a little bit more about the story of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's life. Zichrona livracha, may her memory be a blessing. As I was remembering her legacy and learning more about her life, I came across an article written by Abigail Pogrebin, the author of the book Stars of David, in which she shared biographical interviews with many Jewish celebrities capturing their truths. Among them was Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who shared the story of how she had to wrestle with truth in her early years. Because at age 17, Ginsburg's mother passed away. Having been brought up with a yeshiva-worthy education, she knew the rituals of mourning, and she wanted to join in to say Kaddish for her mother. But she was forbidden from doing so in that time and place because she was a female. As Ginsburg described her house of mourning, she said, "The house was filled with women, but only men could participate in the minyan. That time was not a good one for me in terms of organized religion." And I couldn't blame her for feeling that way. In fact, Pogrebin, the author of this book, she found this moment to be such a powerful moment that she put this story to song, a song that you'll hear a little bit later. But Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she didn't give up on her religion. She didn't give up on her community, even when it hurt her. And she didn't let go of the truth of the way things should be that she knew inside. Rather than allow that moment to settle in and define her relationship with her religion, she used her experience to further fuel her desire to create the truths in our world that she knew should be. She doubled down on the biblical phrase that she hung in her Supreme Court office, tzedek, tzedek, tirdof, justice, justice shall you pursue, from the book of Deuteronomy. And through that motivation, she helped further truths of equity for women, championed rights for other minority groups who have not always been interpreted into our self-evident truths of equality from our Declaration of Independence. Thanks to her and others who followed that truth in their hearts that they knew needed to be aligned with the truth in our world is different. And today, when Reform rabbis like myself are asked if women can say the Kaddish or make up part of a minyan, the 10 Jewish adult minimum needed to say some of our communal prayers, we unhesitatingly respond, of course. And I like to add, as Reform Jews, we believe women count. So of course you're part of the minyan. The truth that she knew way back then in her heart has now become a truth that we can share in our society and our culture. That truth has set forth new lines of equality and justice, access and opportunity. So yes, we each have our own realities, our own experiences, our own truths. And if we are to play a part in building a world of justice, peace, and hope for all, when the truths out there fail us, then we have that obligation to find ways to align the truths of our hearts with the truths of our world. And that right there is one of the core essences of this night and this day of Yom Kippur. We're here to figure out that path where the truths inside and the truths outside can align with honesty, with humility, with integrity, making the world seem more whole, more in balance, and at peace. And in the places where we recognize that there is an imbalance, we have to wrestle with those truths and these truths, realigning each, making sure that we are a part of creating the truth that our world needs. So in this year, this age of post-truth, this year of outright non-truths, let us use this time of reflection and growth to reacquire a relationship with truth, making sure that we do not add to the world wickedness through our lies. In this next year, may we align our interpretations and beliefs of the world around us with the core values we share as a people, and not get caught up in the contemporary groupthink and falsehoods. May we be open to truths that challenge our ways of thinking, even from unexpected sources. And may we allow the truths within, the truths of our own experiences, our own core sense of justice and morality, to push us towards creating the truths we know should be. May we seek our truth today so that we can build the truths that will be in this next year. Let truth be our partner that lifts us above the floodwaters, and let us say, Amen.
I'm 17 and Mama's ill. People whisper around her. I'm expected to be brave. I say I'll try. The day before my graduation, I watched her die. We gathered in the living room, relatives and neighbors. I expected to stand up to chant the prayer. But the women were forbidden, which felt so unfair. Count me in the minion, yes, I know the law, 10 men, 10 men. Please don't explain that to me again. She's been my closest friend since I was born. And Daddy, I just need to mourn. Please let me stand next to you. Let me say the prayer. But laws can't be broken. They prayed without me, as if I weren't there. My mother nudged me every day. Ruth, you're smart. Keep reading. Not many girls knew Kaddish. I was one of the few. The faith that I was born with didn't care what I knew. Count me in the minion, yes, I know the law, 10 men, 10 men. Please don't explain that to me again. She's been my closest friend since I was born. And Daddy, I just need to mourn. Please let me stand next to you. Let me say the prayer. But laws can't be broken. They prayed without me, as if I weren't there. As if I weren't there. As if I weren't there. A daughter's voice is quiet. At the moment it should be heard. Iskata, Iskatash, Shemirabah. I have tried to be the person who my mother saw. Who my mother